It is exactly 9:50 a.m. News and Views, our final interview for the morning, and we're going to be talking with architect and lecturer at the University of Cape Town, that is Clint Abrahams, and this is to do with Macassar's community builders bringing communities together through various activities with our guest, Clint Abrahams. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Julie. It's very nice meeting you and obviously to your listeners. I hope we're going to have an inspiring talk.
Absolutely, I have no doubt about that. Absolutely intrigued. You are a lecturer at the University of Cape Town. I also understand that you won the storytelling project, the 2022 Social Responsibility Award. Now, how did this all start for you? Do you come from Macassar, if that is the way, if that is the correct pronunciation? And if you don't come from that part of the Western Cape, why this deep interest in this community?
Well, no, I do come from Macassar. I mean, if one
Ah,
wants to if one wants to be technically correct, I mean, I'm born in Stellenbosch in a little village called Jamestown. But I mean, we moved. My parents moved here when I was 4 years old. But my dad himself, he was from Macassar. So whenever people ask me, I mean, where I'm from, it is Macassar. So yeah, I'm from here. I've lived in several places in Macassar, and I've always been moved and been inspired by the place and the stories of people of this particular place.
that's, as I understand it, quite a small community, was a poor community in the past. And here we have a son of Macassar having done amazing work, having won an award, Social Responsiveness Award, and obviously lots more to come in the future. Talk to us about why you felt as you were growing up in that community that you're going to be doing something for this community. You're going to put it on the map. And obviously, an amazing inspiration for all the young people, not only in Macassar, but all around South Africa. How does
Look,
your story start?
yeah. So I mean, as I said, I mean, I grew up in Macassar, and I've always been particularly inspired by storytellers and people who tell stories in a particular way, but then also, a lot of people who aren't able to verbalize their stories, but they verbalize them through the things they make. So I've always been interested in how we sort of make things. So early on, I was quite inspired by bricklayers and carpenters. I mean, my dad is
Wow.
a very good bricklayer, and so they sort of really inspired me to become an architect or to study architecture. Also, what was really interesting for me when I was about 9 years old in what is called grade 6 today, our teacher told us a story that stuck with me for many years, and that's the story of Sheikh Yusuf and his resilience and the community that he started in Macassar, and how that became a safe haven for many individuals. So these sort of stories have always kind of been sort of in the back of my mind. And when I went to go study architecture, when I completed my national diploma in architectural technology, I went to go work for a firm for about 10 years. And then eventually in 2015, I completed my master's in architecture. And I just didn't have the urge to go back into private practice. And so I found myself back in my community. And then at that particular time in 2016, there was quite a number of peaceful protests, because a lot of people, they were really concerned about the crime and levels of poverty that sort of happened within our community. And sort of from a distance, we were watching and seeing sort of how the peaceful protest didn't really have any sort of impact. And so I came back to sort of work with a group of young people, and we sort of thought, what is one way that we could actually contribute? And we sort of were very interested in how we could change the perceptions of that was held by many others outside of Macassar of our place. And so we started to have sort of conversations around what things and places and people mean to us in Macassar, and that sort of developed into discussions around possibly putting up an alternative mirror or an alternative image that we wanted others to view us by. And that sort of then eventually developed into us conducting a street photography project. And over 2 years, we collected these amazing photographs. And in 2018, we curated a really sort of the first photographic project in Macassar, which also received the UCT Creative Works Award. And that became the catalyst for the storytelling project. What was really quite amazing about the photography project was it was really a way of engaging with adults of the community. And so when they started to see these beautiful images of their place from another perspective, they just came willingly and said, I have a story about that picture. I have a story about that place. And then eventually we decided, okay, well, can we come together and actually start meeting and start oral histories where we could actually start documenting these stories. So that's sort of really, just in a nutshell, what then led up to the Macassar Storytelling Project, which now ultimately has obviously received this prestigious award.
And obviously, a photograph, depending, how creative,
Yeah.
your thinking mind, how creative you think. Um,
Mm.
a photograph is just not a photograph. It's just one
Yeah.
single image, but it does speak, it does tell 1,000 words, or it tells a very
Yeah.
deep story. So I like the art form of photography, and I see you do too. You mentioned Sheikh Yusuf of Macassar,
Mm.
and you living, or the people of Macassar are really living in a very special place, undoubtedly.
Indeed.
Um,
Indeed.
and here's hoping that we have many more such deep thinkers like yourself that come out of Macassar, that you motivate them to really become the best versions of themselves, and that anything is possible when you apply your mind to it. I want to share this with our listeners and viewers, and then I'd like you to respond. And I quote, "An ordinary shack for extraordinary uses" is how Clint Abrahams describes Bong's Inn, a cultural landmark in Macassar and the pinnacle of a pioneering 7-year community-led project that has won the University of Cape Town PhD candidate, architect, and lecturer the prestigious 2022 Social Responsiveness Award. Wow, many congratulations on that. What does it mean for you and for your family and for the people of Macassar?
Well, I think it means, I think it means obviously a lot to myself and the participants in the storytelling project. I think the news isn't that well known in the community as such. I think platforms like yourselves, will obviously help getting that sort of news out there. But it means incredibly a lot. I think specifically, when we did the street photography project and also the oral histories, one of our biggest challenges was to actually find a place to actually conduct these activities. And when you come into communities like Macassar and similar communities, public places are very often very highly politicized, and so getting access to them is quite a challenging prospect. And so we found ourselves actually starting to use several shacks, several self-made places, and
Can I
unknowingly,
interrupt you here, please?
yeah.
Do you truly mean, when I read this piece, I couldn't believe, and I thought maybe you're just referring to it as a shack, uh, just for perhaps to inspire more interest, to create more interest. Is Bongi's Inn literally a shack as we
So
know it in an informal settlement?
no, so what it is, so Bong's Inn was a self-made place, which is you could describe it if you looked at it as a shack. It was built by a Rastafarian called Joey Sampson, who actually wanted a place for them to come together over weekends. This was in the late 1980s, and so literally it's made from gum poles and cladded with with uh, with corrugated metal sheeting. And this particular place was an addition to an old apartheid council house. And so it is in itself a bit of an informal place. It's not in an informal settlement. It's part of the apartheid township. And so over the years, this particular place have been so many things. It's been a game shop for young people. It's been a taxi a depot, and then it's now also obviously been an exhibition place for us in terms of the storytelling work that we've done. And so we use it. We use the term shack to sort of draw interest, but ultimately, what we're trying to also communicate is that even when we describe things in a particular way, there's deep meaning and deep empathy that is captured and held within those terms and what they represent in terms of places.
Okay, so what does this award mean for you, and what next? Because I mean, if you've received such a prestigious award, that does mean that you've got to continue doing the work that you're doing, or aspire for bigger and better, not only
Yeah,
for yourself, but for the community as well.
exactly. So I think it's also important. I mean, Bongs in obviously it was built by Joey Sampson and his Rastafarian friends. And in 2019, we were able to, together with the students of UCT, German students as well as CPUT students, we were able to refurbish that particular place. And I think it's really useful to look at it. It's quite an amazing piece of architecture in terms of how does one repackage local knowledge, building knowledge, and present that as a meaningful case to study. And so that particular place obviously have been used by myself and the group of storytellers to come together once a month, sometimes or once every 2 months, especially in COVID. You know, these storytelling projects, storytelling events have been a bit delayed. And we've been able to capture a number of stories. And so just to respond to ongoing projects, we are actually about a month away of publishing the first storybook of Macassar, which we are incredibly excited about and planning a launch for this particular book. So definitely watch out for social media and news outlets as to when that will take place.
Please shout out to us. We'd like to talk to you about it when the book is published. I'm also hoping that as an architect, I'm sure whenever you look at a rugged structure or a structure that just doesn't sit well with you through your architect's eye, that you want to fix it or you want to repurpose it, or you know in your mind's eye how you can truly take it to the next level and beautify it. Please don't do anything with bongs in. Leave it in its original form, because I think that's where the attraction and the beauty lies. Would I be correct in thinking that?
Well, I think that I'm not sure if you've seen the images of Bong's Place.
No, I haven't.
So I think it's an interesting thing to look at, because there's in the article you'll see what it was before and how we've used it. One of the important aspects of the place was that the roof was leaking, and it did become it was always a place where people came together, but it wasn't always safe from the weather and so forth. So it needed to be refurbished. And so what we did, the way that we've refurbished it, was to look at similar structures in Macassar, and we've looked at ways of how people do make those kinds of structures, and we basically designed a particular architectural language to reimagine what the shack then is. So what's quite interesting is that when you visit the shack or the community hall space, you'll see similar detailing that you found in the original shack. But also, I think one of the most moving things for me is whenever I visit the place and visitors come along, they will enter that space. They will be inspired by it, but they're never intimidated by it. And what's quite interesting about it is that I have to remind them that actually I believe why you feel comfortable to comment on it is because it's actually familiar. And so when people come there, they often look at the structure, and their comment would be like, I can actually do this at home. I never thought
Wow.
about it like that. So it's never, wow, I can't do this, but it's, wow, I think I can do this. And I think it's because there's a familiarity in the way that we fixed it up. that pays homage to not only Bong's original shack, but many of the wonderful self-made places that you find in Macassar.
Has that become a tourist attraction? I hope it has.
Well, not as such. I think there are definitely talks around a tourist route and how that place then becomes part of that route. So I definitely think that it's an opportunity to do so. We have over the last couple of years have taken a number of students and visiting lecturers to the place, and by having to do so, we've been forced to actually carve out a tourist route in the community, and I think it'll definitely inform a tourist route to the place.
How amazing. One son from Macassar making all of this possible and inspiring the next generation of people from that area. Just two more questions before I let you go. You spoke about your master's. What was the thesis all about?
So the thesis when I did the master's was actually was called High Streets in Low-Income Areas, and
Wow.
what it
Also
yeah,
tied in with what we're talking about, is it not?
in a way, because I mean, look, it didn't focus on Macassar, it focused on Delft, um,
Okay.
and so it was all about comparing informal edges versus institutional buildings edges, and how we can learn from the informal edges. And so ultimately, it was proposing a housing scheme together with a FET college. And then I think it's quite interesting when I reflect on the work on Macassar. It does the same thing. It really tries to explore a high street, but identifying the places that are already functioning, that's actually made by people themselves, and connecting them strategically. And so I think ultimately what I'm trying to imagine is what a contemporary cultural place looks like in places like Macassar, where where the experience is that is very inclusive, and it's not one big idea that overrides existing things that already are working.
So obviously the story of Macassar and Bong's Inn is a story that could be a story anywhere in a small town in South Africa. You are telling those stories. Let's go back to the photographic stories that you were telling with the community. Is that now a permanent fixture in Bong's Inn, or does it, after that event, do the photographs get taken away and newer photographs come in? What is the story around that?
So the photographs is not permanently up. I think what was, and we are at the moment busy working on a publication which we refer to as a street photography journal, which that will be made available later in the year, early in 2024. So that's something that we are working on. The photography project ultimately became a participatory project, where it became a very important project to invite others to participate, especially elders. And so what does happen about twice, I mean, really sort of twice a year, we would have a photography exhibition in Bong's Inn, or Bong's Place as people refer to it. What has been important for us is that when you visit Bong's Inn or Bong's Place, is that you are struck by the everyday activities that does happen at that place. So at the moment, what happens is that when you go there, firewood is sold from the place, which carry on the tradition of how that place came into being. And so when we have storytelling events, or when we have a smaller exhibition, it happens while the everyday practices
Ah.
continue to carry on in the background. That is a very important aspect for us, so that it's not about having a series of events that then stops and then shows up later on. I think it's more important for us that people are aware that how everyday practices starts to reveal the intelligence behind the placemaking strategies that people are embarking on every day. And then, so now and again, we come in and have an exhibition or a storytelling event that basically starts to illuminate those stories of the everyday.
Wow, that's the type of place I like to visit where everyday, regular, normal people doing their regular, everyday business. And then there's this storytelling or photography exhibition going on. I just think it adds to the specialness and the uniqueness of that experience. And it is a total experience. It would be for me anyway. Just in closing, then, is Bongs still alive? And if he is, what does he say about Bong's place?
So Bong is whose real name was Joey Sampson. Was unfortunately he died in 2000, and when that happened, his uncle Thomas Adonis, who we all refer to as Uncle Tommy, and his wife Enid, they sort of then started to take over the place. Bong was a businessman and very much beloved, took care of a lot of people. And when they took over, they basically stopped the businesses, and they then started to sell firewood from the place. Bong's mother, Auntie Dor, is still alive, and so we see her quite regularly. We still, and she still stays in the house where Bong's place is situated. And then Uncle Tommy also unfortunately passed away about 2 years ago. But what has been amazing is that the practices that they have started have continued, and so now his friend Tony, together with Anina, they've carried on the firewood selling business. And so there's always a place where people come along, and they'll just sit there and start conversating and tell stories. And so I mean, that's an unfortunate incident that he passed away, but we've been able to sort of carry on that legacy by making sure that what he started continues to live on.
Fascinating indeed. A beautiful story about salt of the earth type of people. They have the most amazing lives and the most amazing stories to tell. So, good luck with your future projects. I do hope that we'll talk again sometime soon. I really enjoyed talking with you this morning. Keep up the great work.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure entirely. That was Clint Abrahams, architect and lecturer at the University of Cape Town, talking to us about Macassar's community building, obviously storytelling and bringing the community together. How very fascinating indeed. And that's where we wrap up for the morning. Thank you indeed for your company. A shout out to our content producer, and that's you, Nasri Naidu, and the guy behind the controls, Abdus Salam. From me till Monday morning, because this is when my weekend starts. Aren't I lucky? Okay, so till Monday morning, keep safe, take care on the roads. Assalamu alaikum and khudafiz from me, Julie Ali.